Everybody dies, don't they? Everybody come back, don't they? Isn't that so?
You tried to get into the locked room today, didn't you?
How do the dead come back, Mother? What's the secret of the dead?
Young Billy Me Lad by Andrea Smith. Milo always made me deal with older bodies, and there were a lot of them. Whether it was the lugubrious eyes of a sideways goldfish goggling up at me from the surface of the pond, or an old cat that had fallen foul of the milkman's trap, he could never manage to scoop up the poor little body himself and dispose of it, even though they were always his blasted pets. "Peg, dear, please come. There has been an unfortunate..." My unmarried brother could never quite bring himself to put into words whatever little tragedy had blanched his cheeks of their usual ruddy colour. It was always apparent by his downcast swimming eyes and tremulous voice. It didn't matter how much I protested either. "Oh, dear Peg, do deal with it for me. You know how delicate my stomach can be. You're so much more used to this sort of thing than I ever was." It was no use. I'd spent the war on a farm in Pembrokeshire. My brother had stayed home with Mother on account of his funny turns. I always thought it had been awfully good of her Hitler to avoid bombing the pair of them while the rest of us joined the army and drove ambulances and farmed sheep. Girding my stoutish female loins, I tried to ascertain which particular ailing pet had met its maker this time. Milo had taken to bringing broken and diseased creatures in from the woods in recent months. I could be digging a tiny grave for anything from a mange-ridden squirrel to a chaffinch with a broken neck. What am I looking for, then? Is there a box in the scullery, or have you wrapped it in your dressing gown again? I do wish you wouldn't use your clothes like that, Milo. You know, I couldn't get the stains out of the last one, and I can't keep going up to town to buy you new things when... My words trailed off when I realised that there were tears rolling down his silly face. There, don't take on so, dear. Was it a particular favourite? It wasn't that precious little kitten you picked up from that ditch last week. I thought he was doing rather well. It's not Archie Kitten, no. He ate Hester Mouse yesterday, but you needn't bother about her. There's very little left, just a bit of tail, you know, a claw or two. She can go on the fire later. I shook my head in exasperation. It took Milo so long to come to the point sometimes. I could grow old waiting for an explanation. I pulled on my gardening gloves and decided to set forth and find the poor little corpse for myself. It would save an awful lot of bother in the long run. "It's the butcher's boy," he burst out suddenly as I turned away from him. I felt sure I must have misapprehended what he said. I felt a rod stiffen in my back, and all at once my mind seemed to be whirling much too fast for rational thought. I didn't turn back around to face him. I didn't think I could quite bear to look at him just now. "He's in the kitchen. He was bringing in the order, and he tripped over Henrietta Hen." I had taken a breath, and somehow I could not seem to be able to make myself huff it back out again. I felt trapped inside me like a bird in a cage, like the hen herself the day she had arrived cooped up in his fishing basket on the back of his bicycle. There was now a coal scuttle full of straw next to the old black-leaded range that she roosted in of a night, and she laid her egg in every morning in the woodpile beside it. She was a regular little layer, and a sweet-tempered bird, really, for a chicken. But there was no way to persuade her to lay anywhere else. I had tried. Milo had insisted that we allow her a little eccentricity. The first egg she'd ever laid there had hatched, and we ate that the following year to celebrate the armistice. So he had a point that we probably owed her at least a comfortable perch. "In the kitchen." "Yes, I hit him with the flat iron. That was from the scullery. I really didn't intend to, but he fetched Henrietta Hen such a vicious kick. I really couldn't help myself. Now the stupid boy refuses to get up, and he's bleeding all over the floor." Dear Lord, I had no idea that Milo had the faintest idea what the flat iron was, much less where to find it. He had dreadfully muddy shoes, Peg. I'm afraid he's made rather a mess. You will have to mop it all around afterwards." The breath finally escaped me in a sigh that felt like it had emptied me of all the energy I'd ever had. I know you hate a muddy floor, Peg, dear. I should never have let him inside the house. Nasty boy. My shoulders dropped. It wasn't Milo's fault, really. Mother had indulged him terribly all his life. It had now become my task in life to keep him happy and healthy and safe. With someone his size and, well, his ways, it wasn't always an easy task. You could put him down in the cellar with Father. Nobody ever found Father. Mother said nobody ever would, and nobody ever did. You didn't? I turned round slowly to find him standing very still, with both hands in front of his mouth and his hair sticking up in all directions like Stan Laurel. His fingers had been pulling at it as he spoke. He always did that when he was having a turn. Father died in the war, I said. Milo nodded. Then he giggled like a child caught out in a lie, and I watched his face take on a simulation of seriousness. Yes, he did. Silly me. There was a telegram, wasn't there? Yes, of course there was. And you had to come home. I must have been dreaming. That's what Mother said. That's why he doesn't have a grave. His body is under a French field with all his friends. I remember now. Yes, I was dreaming, wasn't I, Peggy? It was just a bad dream. I keep remembering. Yes, Milo, yes, of course, just a silly, bad dream. Let's have you sitting down in the parlour, shall we? Maybe I'll put on a wireless programme for you. Oh, the parlour! Shall I have some tea, do you think? With bread and butter? And some honey? I could always sway him to my will with sweet things. And I had learned to keep bees when I stayed with the Evanses. They had given me so much. I cried to leave them and come back to this dirty old town with its back alleyways and belching factory chimneys. And my red-faced, hammer-fisted baby brother, who had stood a whole foot taller than me before he was even a man. Milo often struggled to sleep the night through. He got hot. He was itchy. He had bad thoughts, dark dreams. He worried about his little pets being lonely without him. Often I woke to the sound of him fussing about, bumping into things in the shadowy rooms. He wasn't allowed to put on the gas wall lights at night. Mother had taught him that during the blackout, but he had found himself an old oil lamp. I'd given up trying to hide it from him after I caught him wandering round to the light of a length of folded newspaper that was dripping hot ash all over the carpet runner in the downstairs hall as he walked. This particular night, about a year after the silly fuss with the butcher's boy, was the first time I'd ever woken to find myself staring into my brother's pale blue eyes as he knelt at the side of my bed. I jumped so hard I hurt my neck. Milo pinned me down by the shoulders and his big face pressed down onto my own. Hush, Peggy! Don't let him know we've heard him. I'm afraid he'll come upstairs and find us out. He was almost suffocating me in his desperate care to keep quiet by speaking close to my ear. His fleshy cheek filled my nose and mouth, the cheekbone grinding against my eyebrow. Who, Milo? I managed to splutter as I pushed him away. Who is it you're so afraid of? Why, young Billy, me lad, of course. That's what the butcher always called him. Did you ever hear the butcher call him that? Young Billy, me lad, he always said. I am young Master Milo, but he was always young Billy, me lad. William Siddle. That was the boy's proper name. It was all anyone in the high street could talk about last autumn when he'd first gone missing. How could I ever forget his name? Or the shocked expression on his white face. The lack of life in his dull brown eyes. He'd been a cheeky one in life, quick to laugh and quicker to anger. He might have grown into a handsome man. He might have had a family and a nice little life. He might have been a scoundrel. But now he lay in the earth at the farthest edge of our cellar floor, and he wouldn't grow to be anything but dust. They came looking for him, the police. Of course they did. But who would have ever suspected a stumpy-legged spinster and a half-addled brother of having anything to do with the young boy's disappearance. His bicycle was found in a mill pond many years later, but by then only his mother didn't believe that he'd just run away in search of a better life for himself. He'd always been an ambitious boy. It was understandable, they said, that he might want to go off and have adventures. Stupid boy. I only wish he had. So I'd laid him to rest in the dirt of the cellar floor. I'd been afraid to dig too deeply, lest I came across anything I didn't wish to find. But I'd piled up logs and coal on top of him and gone without fires for as long as we might. I persuaded Milo to wear extra sweaters and thicker socks around the house, although he didn't like it. It was June now, so I needn't worry so much, unless I wanted to cook us a hot meal. I hated to go down there. I hated the thought that underneath that sleeping earth, my father might lay mouldering as well, his bones keeping company with the boy he'd never met. Feeling that I was still half asleep, I pushed Milo away from me fully. I ignored the hurt in his eyes and made my voice sound hard. Mother's voice. "Don't be a goose, Milo. You're having one of your dreams, aren't you?" "Am I, Peg? Am I really?" I stroked his red cheek, unable to stay severe with him. "You see, you're all hot and bothered about it." He flashed me a rare grin that made him look like a boy again. Then he agreed with me. "I am a goose, aren't I? A silly, silly goose." He kissed my forehead then and took himself and his lamp back off to bed. I heard Archie the cat meowing at him on the off chance of a midnight snack, but thankfully they both seemed to settle down again quite quickly. Of course, by then I was awake for the night. What had he meant? He'd heard him. What had he heard? We'd turned the chimes off the old grandfather clock at the foot of the stairs when he was a young boy. The constant ticking seemed to settle him, but the chimes had always stirred in him a strange excitement. It couldn't have been the clock. Now the cat had settled down, I could hear nothing. At the moment we had no injured hedgehogs or fallen fledglings, thank goodness. The air was warm. It was a typical June night. I could hear the rustle of the trees out in the garden and the woods just behind. We were lucky here, out on the edge of the town. The River Mersey rushed a mile or so beyond the woods, but out here in Halewood, a trickling brook was the closest we got to fresh wild water, and that was almost dried up at this time of year. I began to relax back into my covers, contented that there was nothing to hear and therefore nothing to worry about. It was easy to become spooked when woken with a shock. When I was a child, Father used to make me cocoa when Milo had kept us up with a screaming fit. Milo would have nobody but Mother when that mood overtook him. I was happy to have my turn with Father. He never said much, but I didn't need him to. It was good enough for us to sit there together by candlelight, sipping the steaming sweetness and thinking our separate thoughts side by side. Creak. I sat up with a start. I was sure that Milo had gone back to his room. He never did shut his door just in case it might jam and trap him there. As far as I knew, that had never actually happened, but he always feared the possibility. He had a knitted doorstop that was weighted down with a cobblestone. I'd made it for him myself. It couldn't have been his door that had creaked. My own hadn't moved. I had kept an eye on it since my brother had left me. Squeak. Hinges? Was that the sound of unoiled hinges I could hear? I regularly oiled all the hinges inside the house and without. Mother could never bear the sound of a squeaky hinge. Thump. A door slamming back against the wall. The cellar door. The door I tried to open as little as I possibly could. "It's young Billy, me lad. He's coming to get us, Peg. I told you he was coming." I got myself out of bed and scrambled to get my dressing gown. Had I remembered to bolt the back door as I did every night before winding the clock and coming to bed? Had someone got into the cottage and was even now moving around in the darkness? Were they going through the downstairs drawers as quiet as ever they might? When they found nothing of any great value, would they come up the stairs to try and find more? Milo groaned in his bed, and I fled to his side. "Hush, hush, my darling. Let's just sit together quietly and just listen, shall we?" A quieter thud than the first sounded. Was it a footstep on the wooden tread of the staircase? Milo had his face against me. I knew it. He's coming, isn't he? He's mad at me for hitting him and making all that mess of his head, isn't he? I didn't make the mud, though, did I? He made the mess with the mud, Peg!" I crushed him into my side. "Shush, silly goose. Shush." Thud. Another step. There was a smell on the air now, a musty, dirty sort of smell, rank underneath, like an animal with a rotten tooth or an infected wound. I dealt with so many instances of both over the past few years. I found the smell almost familiar. It wafted on the air, lapping closer with each further thud and thump. Milo squealed against my ribcage, so I pulled him closer and closer. He crawled into me as if trying to burrow underneath my skin. I felt his teeth against my flesh when he cried. The muscles in his arms creaked with the effort of stopping himself from screaming. "He's coming back like Father did, isn't he? He wants to take me down into the cellar with him until I die with my eyes open, like Mother did. Doesn't he, Peggy? Doesn't he, my Peg?" Thud. The smell was almost unbearable now. Foul breath, corrupted flesh, filthy grave dirt. My mind screamed all these phrases at me. It filled with pictures of the things I couldn't see. "Don't be ridiculous, Milo. What are you chattering about? Mother had a bad heart. It just gave out. What would you know? When you came home, you were out at night helping the ARP man put all the lights out and telling people to get into the shelters. You were never here when he came." Milo bucked against me in his terror. He tried to pull away, to escape from this impending horror. He fought me, but he'd never been strong, despite his great size. He had never mucked out animals or dug their graves. He had not pulled a living lamb feet first from its mother's steaming womb. He couldn't fight his way out of my worker's muscles or the fierce grip of a woman protecting her only charge. There was a final thump, and a shadow blocked the doorway. It seemed darker than the night air and thicker than a body ought to be. It stood there, still and unspeaking. A soft noise like an animal sniffing the air was all I could hear. I bit my teeth together hard enough to make my jaws ache. I had to keep in the screams, you see. My arms trembled with the effort of keeping Milo quiet, but I was so proud of how silent he was managing to keep. The longer I squeezed him to my bosom, the stiller he became. Good boy, good little goose. The shape in the doorway seemed to hesitate, turning from side to side, blindly checking for something it couldn't seem to find. It stumbled and turned away eventually, the lurching thumps diminishing down the staircase as I began to shudder and cry. "Well done, my good boy. Well done, Milo." I squeezed my brother hard in an embrace of pure relief, and when I loosed my hold on him, he slipped noiselessly across my knee. His head lolled bonelessly on my lap, and his unblinking gaze let me see what I'd done. I stared at his pale face, and the open blue eyes stared stupidly back at me. All the way up and down the staircase again were muddy footprints that led the way from the cellar door to Milo's bedroom doorway and back down again. That was what they told me afterwards. Dirty footprints, but only from here to there and back again, or there to hear. I get so muddled up now. It was the new butcher's boy that found us, they said. I never did get his name. Not this one. He had a message from the butcher asking if we needed a new order making up, as we hadn't called round the shop in a while. The smell had tipped him off that something wasn't quite right, I believe. That and the flies. Apparently, the boy had never seen so many flies in his whole life.
Everybody dies, don't they? Everybody come back, don't they? Isn't that so?
You tried to get into the locked drawer today, didn't you? You tried.
How do the dead come back, Mother? What's the secret of the dead come back?
Hello, so Annie Smith.
Hi.
So we've just heard young Billy Millard, your story, and we are going to talk about the story, but I thought first of all I might ask you a little bit about yourself. So as much as you want to say about where you're from, what do you do, things like that.
Not so thrilling, actually. I'm from the northwest, like you, only a bit further south than you. Little town called Widnes, which I don't know what to say about Widnes, really. I got out. And that's about it. I'm in Yorkshire now. Live in York now. Very, very different.
You crossed the Pennines.
Yeah, I did. I know. I'm the enemy over here. And my partner's Yorkshire, and the amount of times that comes up. My kids have got Yorkshire accents.
Oh no,
that was never on the cards.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's all good.
I don't know if we need to explain the Yorkshire-Lancashire thing for people who aren't from the UK. There's this.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Wars of the Roses. This ancient enmity between the white rose and the red rose.
Yeah.
Which we, a bit further up in Cumberland, it's not. We were actually Yorkists, funnily enough. You would have expected us to be Lancastrians, but we were mainly Yorkists because we're on the Lancaster side, but geographically. But anyway, there we are. So there's this ancient rivalry. It's pretty good humoured these days, though, I think.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
So you crossed over to York. Nice place, though.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah. Very different from where I grew up in my industrial, smoky little town. Yeah. But I mean, lots of rolling green hills here.
And lots of ghosts in York as well.
Oh, yeah, it's riddled with them. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's really good for inspiration for stories. There's loads of folklore and stories and stuff. Loads of ghost walks, aren't there? I mean, they fall over each other, don't they? There's that many of them.
So when did you move there?
When I was early 20. I've lived here longer than I lived over there. I was got married very young and moved over with my first husband. And we moved with his job, and I carried on commuting back to Liverpool to carry on with my master's degree for a little bit. Then we had loads of kids. So
2 questions arise. What was your master's degree in?
A Victorian literature.
Okay. What was
But I cheated a bit.
Okay.
And I did the Pre-Raphaelites and Keats. So it was mostly about paintings, and somebody who wasn't even Victorian. So...
Wow.
Got away with it though.
As long as they didn't notice, I think it's probably all right. But they all sound really interesting. I mean, everybody loves a Pre-Raphaelite, so don't they? I do.
I love them.
It's a Keats is good. I saw Keats's grave in Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to it, especially years ago. Yeah. It was good. Okay, so Victorian literature. So that kind of makes me think you did something literary for your first degree.
Yeah, English language and literature. I love the language as well. Linguistics was a big part of my interest, but that and the Victorians were my main interest. I've always loved ghost stories. Absolutely always. It's always been a thing.
So when do you remember, how far back does it go?
Since I was a child. I was reading books I shouldn't have been reading way before I should have been reading them.
What kind of books?
I was reading Stephen King when I was 9.
Right.
I had a kid's library card, but my mum persuaded the librarian to give me an adult library card so I could read Roots by Alex Haley. And once I had that adult library card, I was away. Everything I could get my hands on.
I remember Roots being such a big thing in the 70s, wasn't it? I'm probably older than you. I am. So I remember Roots being a big thing then. Stephen King.
And it was educational, so I was allowed the ticket.
Well, there's that view of encouraging children to read above their age as a way of developing them. I think there's something in that, really.
I think it's great.
So, what were you scared of Stephen King books in those days? I mean, were they scary for you?
Yeah. When I was a kid, they were, and I can remember I had a friend, my best friend. Well, I say best friend. She used to infuriate me with this. We used to read the same book at the same time and race to see who could get further ahead, and then come in and give each other spoilers.
Oh no.
It's a bit passive aggressive, that, isn't it? But so we'd race and race, so we'd read faster and faster.
Did you read the English equivalents at the time? Like the Fog? James Herbert, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I love James Herbert. I met him as well. He was amazing. Yeah, he was lovely.
Did you meet Ramsey Campbell as well?
Oh yeah, I've met Ramsey Campbell, James Herbert, Clive Barker. They did a horror conference at the university because James Herbert's daughter was a year above me, Carrie Herbert.
Right.
So she used her influence and got them all in for a full day of lectures and conversations. It was absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I had tea with Kim Newman.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it was just, I used to follow Ramsey Campbell around because he's got something to do with Liverpool libraries, hasn't he? Right. So we used to do lectures and stuff in all the libraries, and he had Sean Hudson once. So he was doing this chat, and I was sat there like, and he started barracking him from the back of the room, and they were thinking, who's that bloke over there telling him off?
So ghost and horror stories are deep in your, and I often make the distinction between the ghost story. So you have the, like, as we've talked about, the Victorian and Edwardian ghost story, which then changes into a kind of horror. It's already changing to a horror story in the Edwardian period. I wonder how scary the ghost stories were, but certainly jumping back to your story, struck me that's a horror story rather than a ghost story.
Yeah, it turns that way, doesn't it? Yeah, I started off trying to write a ghost story because I've been listening to one of the rambles where you'd been advising to slow everything down and not rush the denouement, listen to every footstep, keep the tension. Yeah. And I thought, well, I'm rubbish at that. I'm terrible at endings. I always rush the endings, and everybody always tells me that's not finished. Go back and do some more. So I made this one take its time.
No, I think it worked. I think it worked.
That was
also the sort of the twisty ending as well. That was certainly I didn't expect it. This is going to come after.
The amount of stories you've read, I thought you'd.
Oh no! I'm still surprised by some stories. I was surprised by that. You may say I should have guessed, but no.
I don't think so. I think I chucked that one in at the end.
No, I think it worked really well. So going back, because we're jumping around a little bit, but that's not a bad thing. So you're in York now. Before we kind of launch into the story, what are you doing now? What do you do?
Well, I'm editing a surgical journal at the moment. I edit the papers that come through just to make sure the language is consistent and check all the manufacturers and references and boring stuff like that. So
what is your actual job title then?
Technical editor for the British Journal of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Oh, yes. So, but that's the linguistics. That's the language, the attention.
Yeah, it's great. I feel like it's the other half of my brain as well, so that when I put that aside and I sit down to write, something completely different goes on up here and I wake up again. Because I can be tired from the editing. That's why I have to do it with a pen, because I do all my editing on a screen. I find I write with a pen, and it just works better that way. I seem to get more of a connection.
You're not the only
with a pen.
A lot of writers have said that they write, historically, of course, they write longhand but I'm guessing you write longhand, then you have to type it up.
Yeah, it drives me mad, the typing up, but you've got to do it, haven't you?
Do you catch kind of plot holes and things like that when you do it that way? When you're going over it, you've written it down longhand, then you're typing it up, and it's an opportunity to...
rewrite it when I type it up. Yeah, definitely. It always gets rewritten when it's typed up, and then I'll get somebody to read it, and then it gets rewritten again.
What was the story you were telling me? What was the story that you had published before you were telling me?
Oh, that was ages ago. That was a story about a horse. It was an anecdote I'd heard in a riding lesson.
Okay, so it wasn't a horror story or anything?
No, just a little story. I dashed off in 10 minutes, sent it off to a magazine thinking, nobody ever publishes me, no one will be interested. And Best Magazine published it, sent me 200 quid, and then they stopped doing fiction. they'd sent me a letter saying, "Oh, send us more. Yeah, we like this sort of thing. Send more." And I was like, "Right, I'm quitting it. This is brilliant. I've finally done it." I was at the school pick-up telling people how brilliant it was. And then I got another letter that said, "Oh, we've stopped doing fiction, so don't bother." So they just
it's really interesting because you think about back in the day, right through to the 60s, 70s, fiction writing was a mainstay of magazines. Most, think back to Dickens, but then from the Victorians right through to Amazing Stories and the pulp stories, Dime Detective and whatever, right through. And then all the ladies' magazines used to have a fiction, didn't they? The Atlantic and things like that had a fiction section. I wonder why that's changed.
Well, no, the ones that do fiction now is they sort of have a stable of writers, if you like, that they prefer because they know that they'll be popular and they know they do well. And if you can get on that, that's great. But I just couldn't do it because I wanted to write the horror, the ghosts, the creepy stuff always creeps into my stories no matter what I do.
Same here.
Give up on that. Free presses, publications and stuff when I was younger, but I don't know. They don't really exist anymore either. They've sort of all died out.
It must be to do with economics, if people aren't prepared to. And there's no way. I mean, you can do it as a labour of love for so long, but I suppose then you've got to pay the bills, haven't you? So if people aren't buying them, I wonder if they'll come back like vinyl records and print books.
Great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think, actually, funnily enough, I think that the short story is having a bit of a renaissance. Maybe I'm a bit biased because that's what I do. And so because I read a lot of them as well, But, because people's attention span's a lot shorter now. So that's, I think it is.
Yeah, there is that. But also because you guys are narrating them as well, because I know a lot of people I speak to, they say, "Oh, I can't be reading it, but I'll listen to it."
Yeah, that's
and that's it's because they can do that in the car, can't they, while they're driving?
You can,
not got the inconvenience of a book in their hand.
So what is it? This spooky stuff comes to you, but what would you say? Do you have any particular inspiration?
Oh, my mum. When my dad used to be on nights, my mum used to she'd just be chatting about like her childhood and stuff, but it really got me interested. She had this really kind of sort of spiritual kind of mind. She was a lot older as a mum than all the other mums. She was 40 when she had me, and in those days she thought she was an old lady at 40. So like all the kids around me used to think she was my grandma, and everyone was going, "Oh, they're your granddaughter then, Ivy," and she got absolutely mad. But it was brilliant because of all these stories she had. My mum and dad were kids during the war. That's where this Billy Millard stuff comes from, is all the things they've told me about when they were children. Because my mum went off to be evacuated and she absolutely loved it. She was on a farm in Blackpool, it was actually. I was chatting to my sister the other day. And but she got dragged back so she could help look after the younger kids. Because my nana decided
from Blackpool or to
she was with this lovely farmer's wife.
Yeah.
And she was learning to look after all the animals and do all the jobs. And she wasn't that type of person at all. She didn't really like animals, but she loved the farm. But then my nana made her come home.
My great grandpa was an air raid warden in Blackpool during the Second World War.
Oh, my granddad was. That's where the ARP comes into it.
They maybe knew each other. But Blackpool's not that big, is it? So there were kind of in that many ARPs, so they probably did know each other. It's a small world. But okay. So, I'll ask you as a question, how much do you pillage of your own experience or things that friends and family tell you?
Quite a lot, actually. More than I used to when I was younger, because these are the things that just seem sharper. And you don't sort of pillage it directly, do you? You don't take it and write exactly what happened, do you? You apply it to something else that you've thought of.
Yeah.
Like, this one just came out of that first line. It just free writing. And I thought, that's mad, isn't it? That's going to get people's attention. And I just carried on. And then as I went, I thought, that reminds me when my mum was telling us about, about when she was evacuated. And then another bit, because she wanted to join the Land Army as well, and they wouldn't let her. So then I started thinking about women then, when they weren't allowed to do things. Because she wasn't married, but she was old enough to know her own mind, but because her dad said no, she wasn't allowed to join the Land Army, and she never got over that. Furious about that.
In the story, the protagonist, the sister, she's like that, isn't she? She went away to the farm. She loved it. She had to come back. Then she's lumbered with looking after her brother, who is an innocent. Put it politely, he can't look after himself, can he? For whatever reason, he can't look after himself. And she then is his mother in a sense. So there's this simmering resentment. It doesn't come out because on the surface she's very loving towards him, and very well. Ultimately, she solves his problems in the end. But you know,
that's a very tight squeeze, wasn't it?
But it was ambivalent as well. I wasn't sure, and this is one of the things I liked about the story, that kind of fatal grasp in the end wasn't started through love to try and comfort him.
Yeah. I think she was trying to protect him at the beginning. She was trying to keep him quiet, and then it was keep him quiet. Oh, he's going to make a noise, and then the ghost will get us. Just didn't let go. She just kept squeezing harder and harder.
And I think that's an interesting point as well. Sometimes writers don't know, do they? They don't know. They put it down on paper, and the thing happens. People say, well, what actually was going to happen? Don't know. Did she at some point think, this is the solution to my problems? This is another man who is anchoring me down into a life I don't want to live. So,
but would she admit that to herself, even if it did? But then she goes mad, doesn't she? She goes mad, but I don't know whether that's because of the ghost or because of what she's done.
Let's think about the ghost. But I mean, I'm interested in this thing. You know, there's 3 levels here. There's not only do you not know what she was doing or how it came about, but she might not know as well, or might not admit to herself. You know, so yeah, let's talk about her dad though. Yeah,
there's layers of that, isn't there?
Dad's in the cellar, is he?
Yeah, I think the mum did away with the dad because she didn't. I think he must have come home injured or something. Yeah. And the mum isn't very nice, is she? She's not a very nice character, but a very strong character. Yeah. And she's probably thought, right, well, I'll deal with this issue. So that leads me to think that the poor girl's ended up being like a mum who she didn't want to be like.
Oh, yeah, that can happen.
But not through deliberate causes. She's just ended up like her.
Yeah. Well, we do things like that. We do. I mean, I refrain from telling anecdotes, but I remember going out to see a patient who had a very critical mother, and I came back and was talking about this patient with a colleague of mine, a male colleague of mine, also called Tony, and he said to me, "I see you've become the critical mother then." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, I have." Whatever dynamic there was, I was replaying it. We can do that, you know. We absolutely do that without actually wanting. So the father, but young Billy Millard, he was aware of. I got the impression that he knew that his mother had done away with his dad, but he
was told to keep quiet about it.
And there was a convenient fiction that he died in some foreign field, you know.
Yeah, because he's easily muddled, as locals would have described him. Any time he made a mistake, he could just. Yeah. Oh no! I just made a mistake. It was a bad dream. I think the mother had coached him on what he should say.
That does happen as well. I could tell you other anecdotes of people, you know, you don't believe them because they've got mental health problems, and it turns out they're telling the truth anyway. But you know, everybody pretends, and it was better for him really that he didn't actually remember the truth.
Is it clear that the dad probably came back for a while, and probably did away with the mum? Because that's how the end hinges, that the ghost is looking for the person that killed him.
Who was the ghost? I thought it was the butcher's boy.
Yeah, the ghost is the butcher's boy. This is probably going to dismantle the whole story now, and it's going to end up being rubbish. But in my head, when they buried the dad in the cellar, the dad started to come back and got the mum, and that's why the mum had a heart attack. She had fright, probably.
Fright of.
So that was probably too subtle, trying to set up for when the ghost starts to come back. Yeah. He's coming to get Milo. Yeah. So that's why she keeps him quiet, so that the ghost, it's like almost trying to sniff him out.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's that whole issue about ghost stories or this kind of story whereby how much should you explain? And and the other thing is everybody brings their own understanding to it. So there will be people who hear that story who see it in a different way, and they will say things that you, as the author, hadn't thought of, and then when they say them, you go, "Oh yeah, that's right." It's almost like people can see things in your own work that you can't, which are there, which makes sense, but you didn't put them there. I think that happens quite a lot, and so I'd be very interesting to see what people's reactions are to the story. What do they think was going on? In terms of period, it's 1950s, is it? 1960?
Well, late 40s, I think.
Oh, it's
after the
late
war.
40s, okay. It's after the war, not too far, because they've still got the wireless, haven't they, and the light program and things like that, and they've still got butchers coming to the house.
With the order, and on a bicycle.
On a bicycle, the butcher's boy. I like the symmetry of the butcher's boy being at the beginning and the new butcher's boy being at the end. I quite like that kind of bookending stuff. So how many have you done of these stories? Have you got a collection?
Got millions of them. Yeah, but I've got a collection. Editing one right now.
Right.
And then I've got about half of the next collection ready to type up and go. And I was thinking about KDP actually, but now I'm not so sure, because after having seen your experience with them, I'm not quite sure what to do with it.
Well, listen, KDP, I was okay for 10 years, and it was really bad luck in my part.
Yeah, it really was.
One of the issues about KDP is the saturation of the market. So you can put something out which is brilliant, and the difficulty is for people finding it. So and that is that I was talking to a friend of mine about music today, and he's a musician, and he was saying about you can put stuff out, in his case on Bandcamp and things like that, but it's about getting the audience. It may be even brilliant, but it's finding the audience is a difficult thing. So certainly KDP is a good route to getting published, and Amazon, whatever we think of them, are they call them £300 gorillas. They are just dwarf anybody else in the publishing business. So I would encourage you to do it. I would encourage you to do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Building the audience is the thing then. But hopefully, that is a good question, and I'll put it in the show notes. Is there a way that people can access more of your work? Do you have a link or a website or anything?
I don't have one at the moment, but I suspect I probably should, shouldn't I?
Yeah, because if people hear the story, I think it's a really good story, and if people hear it and they like it, they're going to want to hear other stuff as well.
I hope so.
Yeah, no. I almost guarantee it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the comments. The comments are always interesting. Most comments are really kind. You'll know from my little gripes that occasionally we get a bad one. But
a little bit scared about some of them though.
I just delete because if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say it, and not everything's for everybody. I mean, as I say in the thing, if you look on Mozart and Beethoven and Shakespeare, there's somebody.
Or Stephen King's rejection.
Or Stephen King's books now. You go and look, and there will be a whole slew of 1 and 2 stars. And I had a comment on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, too wordy. Too wordy. And as I say, it's always somebody who thinks that their opinion is that, all right, that's it. Civilization is now decided because you, Joe from Cleator who whatever you are, that your opinion about this is the one that will stand forever. So yeah,
they want Frankenstein in sound bites.
I don't know what they wanted. I don't think they wanted Frankenstein, to be honest. But anyway.
Yeah.
So young Billy Malad, and what was the other? There was Milo. What did he call Milo, the butcher? He called Milo something as well, didn't he?
Oh, it was young Master Milo, wasn't it?
Young Master Milo.
Yeah, giving him a little bit of prestige when everybody else treats him like he's not very smart. I thought the butcher seems quite a nice guy.
People who kind of chop up dead bodies all day, quite nice. Quite nice. I've met some nice.
No reason why you can't go around smelling of blood and being nice.
I know dogs either love you or hate you as a butcher. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. They think you're their best friend, or they want to kill you. But yeah. So, but that rang true as well. I've heard that young Master Milo and young Billy Malad, and I don't know if that's a northern thing or is more widespread.
Maybe. Yeah. I did grow up with older people.
Yeah. No, young Billy Malad or. I would say to young Kelly Lass or stuff like that,
Yeah.
There we are. So
honestly, it must be in here somewhere. It must have all been logged from all those late night conversations with my mum about things that had happened and things she'd seen. Stuck in my mind all this time. I've always been fascinated with things like this, but
you've never met a ghost?
no, I saw something. I saw a man in a house that we'd just moved into.
Yeah.
But he wasn't dead. I saw him. I was drying my hair upside down with a hairdryer.
Yeah.
Switched the hairdryer off when I saw him. Through the crack in the door, I saw him walk past. Switched my hairdryer off. Heard the footsteps creaking on the hallway. Went into my mum and dad's bedroom. I heard the creak of the bed as he sat down, and he gave a massive sigh.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's weird. My dad shouldn't be home from work. Yeah, he's till 2. So took myself off in there, completely empty room, no sign of anything or anybody. Completely freaked out. When my mum and dad got back and I spoke to them about it, it turned out that there was a lady who lived in our house before us called Mrs. Brassington. And she was very old and bedbound. And her son used to visit her after work every day. And he presumably came trudging up the stairs, went round, came and sat on her bed and gave a great big sigh. And I was like, oh, that was terrible. So what happened to him then? He's not dead. He was the one who sold us the house.
But it's a funny thing because, this is a category of apparitions, usually crisis apparitions, but often of people who are alive. And they present in different places. There's a whole literature on that. But then that's like...
In Mons, it happened. The soldiers on the battlefield, they appeared back home when... in First World War.
Yeah, and then there's Castle Leslie in Northern Ireland, how the airman who was the son of the family appeared before he died, and a lot of them saw him, and then he was killed in action, but he wasn't dead at the time. And Yeats used that, Irish airman foresees his death.
Yeah.
That point.
Yes.
That's the basis of that. So that's a crisis apparition. But this thing about almost stone tape theory, whereby you can imagine, I don't know if you were in a situation of caring for your elderly mother at any point, and certainly you just see them going downhill, and one thing happens and then another thing happens, and it is a great burden. And so you can imagine this man visiting his mother. I'm writing a story now, and then the emotion seeps out from him. So of course,
I felt it. It made me feel. I sound so upset. I went to see because I thought my dad sounded so upset. Something terrible had happened.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it, all this stuff? There are more things in heaven and earth. So what are you reading at the moment then?
Oh, I'm reading Val McDermid at the moment.
I don't...
And I hate to say I'm quite offended with her, but no, I love Val McDermid, and I'm reading the Wire in the Blood books because I just love all the psychology of it.
Okay.
But twice and I've read the whole 11 book. I'm on the 11th one. I've read them all, one after the other. Twice she said, "You've got a face like a wet weekend in Widnes." And
you're like, how dare you?
Val McDermid, how very dare you?
How dare you? I get like that about Workington, people say things about Workington, I'm like, I beg your pardon.
But also, I'm also a bit like, Val McDermid just mentioned Widnes.
Yeah. You can imagine she's been there. I've never been to Widnes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, a wet weekend in Widnes isn't somewhere you'd want it. It's not a tourist destination, Tony. Don't bother with it.
No. I've been near around there because the story's set in that sort of. I forget exactly. It's in sort of Cheshire, Merseyside.
Yeah, Hillwood. It's on the banks of Mersey, where my auntie and uncle live, just a bit further down, and they lived. Actually, they lived on. They had fields around them, and then there was an enormous tip. Like a big rubbish tip, and then a drop into the Mersey.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's a story about that as well somewhere. But that was we used to play there when we were kids. We played in the tip.
You played it? Well, we did. Yeah. I remember going to the tip. It was a great day out, going to the tip and seeing what you could find. It was probably really dangerous.
Oh no, like landfill tip. It was the landfill.
Yeah.
We didn't poke around too much in it, I guess.
Does it and tip. Anyway, we only have a certain amount of time at the moment, so that's been really interesting. I feel it's been more like us having a crack than me,
Yeah.
but
Thank goodness.
but it's been interesting. I really like the story. I love the structure of it. I love the that kind of. And there it ended. The money I put in the gas meter ran out and we were cut short. But I think we'd said all that we wanted to say. Please let Annie know if you like the story. Any constructive and helpful criticism, or not criticism, but comments would be gratefully received. And I hope you like the story. Speak to you again soon.